shared, that the Jewish people and Hashem shared, leaving Har Sinai, he made the journey shorter than it could ever be possible, which is a concept we've seen Avram had kvitzas haderech, they call it, a shortening of the path. A journey that would take a long time took a short time. It's not a new concept. But what's the lesson? The journey that should have taken 11 days took 3 days. But because of what happened once you got there to the edge of Israel, it took you another 40 years to enter. You were on the edge of the land of Israel, a journey that should have taken 11 days, which took 3 days. And then you messed up. So on this, the Mei Shiloach says, Ki b'Kabbalat Torah, when the Jewish people received the Torah, they hadn't purified their hearts to go after Hashem. What does it mean to purify your heart? They had not purified their heart after Har Sinai. What does it mean to purify your heart? So, but how's that as opposed to their mind? As he says right now, Rak b'sichlam hevinu ki tov lifnei l'kayim ratzon Hashem. Their mind knew that it was the best thing was to follow Hashem. Their mind got it. But their hearts were not there. With your, yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly, because your hearts over there is your yetzers. It says it plural, your hearts in plural. Your yetzers, your yetzer hara and your yetzer tov, your inclinations, your desires, your wills. So exactly, your mind is they knew. They knew that it was the Shalom Yosef. They knew that it was the right thing to follow Hashem, but they hadn't perfected their inclinations. The heart is the center of the emotions, the emotional mind. So they hadn't brought on the same board their mind and their heart. You know, what is it like? What are examples? What happens when our minds want to do something, but we haven't brought our whole, I want to speak, but I'm scared. I want to do this project, but I'm procrastinating. Right. None of us would ever do that. Right. Right. Like kids, there's none of that, right? Little kids, whatever, they're where they are. But adults, we want to do something, but then we get in the way of ourselves. You have any good examples, Leah? Yeah. Right, we get in our own way. I mean, every emotional stupidity that we do, like blame and resentment and jealousy and anxiety and mismanaged stress, and it's all things that we know better. So the chiddush right here of the Mei Shiloach is that he's taking that as the B'nai, that's what was going on. I mean, not that we can say that, but that was the root was a disconnect between the mind and the heart, between what they knew and where they were at, what they were present to, what they were feeling, what their experience was. Like I was working with a boy this week, and I was talking to his mother. Wanted to ask me why it was worthwhile for her son to get to get coaching. I was doing some life coaching to help him in yeshiva, Yeah, so his mother wanted to know. So she said, what do you mean he's got a perfect life? He's a great boy, you know, a Jewish mother. He's like, he's smart, he's brilliant, and yet the kid's telling me, you know, how difficult he's got it. You know, so I had to tell the mother, you know, we don't know. I'm sure your perception of his life is true, but we don't know what his experience is. Yeah. Right. So they weren't there. That's yeah. They weren't there, and that's what he says, that when they went to Har Sinai, their minds got on board, but their hearts were not clarified yet. They hadn't gotten their experience on board. So he says, however, with coming into the land of Israel, that would have purified them. Coming into the land is a whole body experience. You know, it's the coming home. That's coming into the land of Israel would have represented unifying the mind and the heart, coming to like our center, pure self-awareness of where we're at. V'zeh Shemala Moshe, and that Moshe is telling them this now. What's the lesson that Moshe is giving them? That the problem was that you thought you had already purified your heart. You see, if they had gone into the land of Israel, they would have come to self-awareness. They would have unified their mind and heart. They would have come to self-awareness, and every action would have been done with their mind's agreement and their heart's full participation. How could they know that how could they have been confused to think that they had reached that already? So I was talking to a friend, and we were discussing ideas for projects, and we came up with one idea, and I was very excited. And he said to me, "Don't be excited. Don't be excited. Excitement is not your friend here." So maybe that's the answer: is that they were so on fire, they were so awakened and on fire and excited. Their mind maybe was so inspired that they didn't realize that they would. And often when people do work with a coach or a therapist or go to a seminar or have a new realization about themselves, they go on this high, but the high isn't real. I mean, it is real, but it's not going to last. Then you got to do the work, and that's exactly what it says. They thought they were on the high of Har Sinai. Imagine the high of Har Sinai. They were on the high of Har Sinai, and they thought they'd already gotten there. And that was the problem. And that's what Moshe is saying. It takes 11 days to get from Har Sinai to Eretz Yisrael. You did it in 3 days. You were so high. You were so excited. You were so inspired. And that was the mess up. And then it took 40 years to do that last one-day journey into Israel. The truth was, he says, that they should have taken the long way. They should have taken the whole 11 days from Har Sinai to Israel. They weren't ready for that 3-day jump. V'lo kinitem, they didn't acquire the Torah, right? They got the Torah with their minds, but they didn't acquire it through the journey, through the difficulties, through going through it, as it says. They only did it after the 40 years. As it says, no one can stand in Torah unless they've fallen in it. It says that in the Gemara in Gittin. No one can stand in Torah unless they've fallen in it. Unless you've you struggled with it. You know what's at stake. You know what it would mean to not have that piece of wisdom in your life.
You have to earn it. In other words, you got to earn it. It's like anything else in life. You got to earn what you want to be and where you want to be. It just nothing comes easy.
Right. Which is a further idea of the connection of the mind and the heart. That you might know that this truth is truth, but is it integrated into you?
The common expression says you internalize it.
Yeah, has it been internalized? Yeah.
There's a big difference between, it's chachma of being of a hospital. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
Taking basic information and converting it to something that's internalized that you can act on. It's a big jump.
Yeah. Yeah. Valzeh Amar David HaMelech, on this teaching, David HaMelech teaches us in Tehillim, Shav Lachem Ashkimei Kum. I'll tell it to you in English. In vain do you rise early. It's an amazing psalm. In vain, the whole teaching is in this one line. In vain do you rise early and stay up late. You who toil for the bread you eat. In Hebrew, it's you who eat the bread of toil. Kain yitain liyadido shena. For Hashem gives to his loved ones while they sleep. Saying, you're working hard. You're toiling for your food. You're staying up late and rising early. And it's in vain. But the one who is Hashem's lover, Hashem gives it all to him while he's asleep. What does that mean? Before the heart of a person is pure, before the heart of a person is there, before a person has integrated what he knows with where he's at, with what his experience is, before his mind and heart are on the same page, before he cuts out self-destructive behaviors and negative patterns of thought and action, before he's become conscious of his default way of living and the patterns that he's grew up with, and he brings his new wisdom into those places. Before he's done that, he needs to work. He needs to toil for nothing, because he works, but he hasn't integrated what he knows into his actions. So he sabotages himself. And he works against his own interests.
Yeah, well, the physical action is often a substitute for the hard work of what the mind and
Yes.
mind and heart have to do.
Yes.
It's a way to console yourself. Oh, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm working
To
hard.
be busy. To be busy. Or the workaholic or the perfectionist.
Look
Or
at me. Look how hard I'm trying.
right.
In the meantime, you keep procrastinating, doing what you should.
And he could, if he were to be focused on what he knows is important, he could do it in a quarter of the time or a tenth of the time. So this is what David HaMelech is saying. Those who are rising early, staying up late, toiling for the bread, they're doing it in vain. But someone who's unified his mind and his heart, and he's brought Hashem's presence into all of his midot, into his heart, into his blood, into his actions, into his subconscious, then he doesn't need to toil at all. Everything happens while he sleeps. What does that mean, while he sleeps? Yeah. What does it mean, while he sleeps? Okay.
Struggling with this because lay asleep is something to come to you. It suggests that you're not doing anything
Right.
to earn it or to merit it.
When you're sleeping, your mind works at a different dimension that cannot be accomplished when you're awake. When you're sleeping, you will, if you can remember your dreams, and I don't remember them very often, but occasionally they're profound.
Right.
Because the things that you can't deal with when you're awake, you deal with in your sleep. You deal with in your sleep.
Yes.
So you're at a completely different dimension in terms of your understanding of what's going on in your life. And if you could remember to have those dreams interpreted, it would be very profound.
Yeah. And a lot, the great Tzaddikim, the Arizal writes about, he would learn Torah in his sleep. What does this mean? When you've got your mind and heart, then things don't feel like toil anymore. Things don't feel difficult. And why is that like sleep? Why do people have difficulty going to sleep?
It's a very relaxing class. If a person sits like this, it's a very relaxing class you have. I'm just putting this for Shabbat. I put it here. So.
Okay.
Why do people have trouble sleeping? Nowadays, people they don't have enough sleeping pills. That's why. They ran out of that. Yeah.
No, what Leah said is right. The minds don't shut off.
Why not? Anxiety, worry, doubt. It's the ikr, it's the essence of what we've been talking about the whole time. Your body is working against you. You're not trusting in Hashem. You're not trusting in...
See, I take issue with what you said.
Yeah.
It's not about trusting in Hashem, it's trusting in yourself. It's the same thing, no difference.
Right.
About trusting in
What does Hashem want you to do? Hashem wants you to do what you know you need to do, right? Your mind is receiving the chachma from Hashem.
your ego, your anxiety,
Yeah.
your lack of connection. There's a million things coming at you all the time to keep you in a state of angst and confusion.
Right. And that's all the impurities of the heart. That's all the impurities of the heart, of the midot, right? The seven midot. So the mind, that what we know is the chachma bina dat. That's what we're knowing, but how do we express it in the world? That's all the lower midot. That's the heart. And how do we? So why do we have trouble sleeping? Because we're not trusting in ourselves. We're not trusting in Hashem. But those who have done this, those who truly love Hashem in all of themselves, they don't feel the strain. It's as if they're sleeping. They've given the control to Hashem, even though they're doing it all. It's like you see. There's an analogy of seeing a construction worker, and he's carrying this massive load of bricks with one hand from one side of the construction yard to the other. And you look at him, and the fool looks at him and says, "That's impossible. That must weigh hundreds of pounds." And he says, to the guy who's asking, he says, "You're a fool. Can't you see there's a crane holding it up? I'm just moving it." So to the person who's integrated Hashem into everything he does, he doesn't see he's unified in his efforts.
I think there's the concept of necessity is a mother of invention. I'll tell you a personal never had a day of angst the whole time I was developing it. Because I totally believed in it. I totally believed in myself. And everything I did just went smoothly. It was no problem
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
I used to think,
And then what?
I would come to every weekend, I said, gee, there's nothing to worry about this weekend. Everything's going the way it's supposed to. And it did. And I ran this thing for 35 years, never had to commute. I worked out of the house with my wife. And it just went like nothing. Now, I'm not like that anymore. Now I'm more into the anxious,
How did it end?
I had to, the business sort of died, just slowly died because people with big bucks came into it. And I frankly lost interest 2 years ago. I stopped really working it. And it went down and down and down. But I can't, I have to give myself credit that when I developed it, I had the perfect attitude. And it went just as smooth as it could go.
Right.
Then once my attitude went to hell, the business went to hell, and I have been very difficult for me to recreate myself in a different thing. Although I have other interests and things
Right.
I'm very good at, I don't seem to be able to launch them like I did with this thing like 37
Right.
years ago.
So when you had the attitude that whatever that attitude was needed at the time, it went. It just flew.
I believed in it. There was a need. I was the perfect person to supply the need.
Yeah.
And boom, it just flowed. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. It just went.
It just went.
Right.
I
And
can't do it now.
that's the amazing words of David HaMelech. You can resonate with that in vain do you rise early and stay up late, you who toil for the bread you eat. He provides as much for his loved ones while they sleep. That's the feeling of when you have the right attitude and you're just in line and it's flow and it makes sense.
In the zone.
When you're in the zone, there's no... But if you're not, then you're just busy, 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 busy.
You're working against yourself.
Yeah.
The trick is, of course, to get in a place where you absolutely believe in yourself and what you're trying to do. And that's the trick.
Right. So that's what the Mei Shiloach teaches in this week's Parsha. And the lesson that I take from this, that I think he's saying, is what Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching them, that they weren't aware. It's not that they hadn't purified their hearts. That wasn't their fault. Meaning, you getting the right attitude, it's less in your control. But what the Mei Shiloach seems to be pointing out is that it is in your control to know whether you're to be self-aware about where you're at right now. What is going on inside me? How am I doing self-sabotage? Am I on the right track? Exactly. This is emet. This is knowing.
Near those who call upon him, call him upon him in truth.
In truth, yes.
Not just say the words, but believe in
Yes, this is a level of truth, and that's exactly what I wanted to say. We'll get to that in a minute, but this is a level of self-awareness, and that's what the Mei Shiloach is pointing us towards. So now to take this to Tisha B'Av, because the topic here is Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av was the day that the Meraglim came back, the spies came back and spoke bad about the land of Israel. Of course, the day of the destruction of the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. And that seems to be what Moshe is giving them rebuke for, is the spies. And what the Mei Shiloach is saying is the lesson of what we just said is to be self-aware. To be self-aware, to know that you're not fully, to know that you're not there, to know that am I on a high, or am I in touch right here? Is my relationship real? Yeah. Where am I holding with between me and God? Is it, is it better to have a good relationship with God? Well, of course, that's the best. Is it better to have a bad relationship and think it's good, or to know it's bad?
Well, it would seem that depending on your state of mind will answer that question. If you're at peace with yourself, you know it's a good relationship. If you're not, then there's something out, and you got to do research and find out what the problem is. I don't think you can kidding yourself. Well, I mean, I guess people
I,
can play mind games.
right. I think we're saying the same
Everything
thing.
is
Yeah.
great, everything's working perfectly.
Exactly.
They're just making it up. I don't know how
Right.
much good that's going to.
That's what it's teaching us. We gotta not play mind games and know where we're at in our relationship with Hashem. In the words of Shlomo Carlebach, he says, seemingly Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur have a lot in common. But on Tisha B'Av, we don't say Tachanun. On Yom Kippur, we do. We don't do confessions on Tisha B'Av. On Yom Kippur, we do. On Tisha B'Av,
Tisha B'Av is about the destruction of the temple was done on a widespread basis.
Right.
Yom Kippur is a personal thing.
Yom Kippur is personal. It's also national. But yeah, it's not about something that happened.
I don't understand why we make a big deal out of Tisha B'Av anyway. Look what the people did. They deserve what they got. I mean, come on. Murder,
It's a great
adultery,
question. No, because
total corruption,
it's
stupidity.
not a memorial to what happened. It's about you. It's not about what happened then. We'll get to it.
Okay.
It's also another difference between Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur is going to be abolished, and Tisha B'Av won't.
Let's back up on that. Yom Kippur will be abolished.
Yom Kippur is going to be abolished when Mashiach comes.
Then why would Tisha B'Av not?
Tisha B'Av won't.
Why?
It won't.
Yeah.
Why? Okay. Tisha B'Av is a lesson that will always be important. Tisha B'Av is not even at its root. It's not a sad day. It's a meaningful day. It's called a moed. A moed means a holiday. It's a moed. The verse that it's used to call it a moed is that it's a moed. I don't remember. I didn't write it down. It's a moed, a holiday for the killing of the Jews. But it's still learnt out by the rabbis as, wow, Hashem is calling it a holiday. It happens to have been that it was. We'll understand soon, but just to know that Tisha B'Av is a holiday that will be forever, whereas Yom Kippur is not. Yom Kippur is going to be ending when Mashiach comes. There won't be any more need for Yom Kippur. So what is Tisha B'Av? That it's forever and that it's a holiday. What is Tisha B'Av? And it's explicitly here in the Mei Shiloach. Which is even strange. Tisha B'Av is not in the Torah. Yom Kippur is in the Torah, yes.
But if Yom Kippur will not be
Celebrated in the time of Mashiach.
celebrated in the time of Mashiach, why? How do you derive that from the proclamation in the Torah that
The Torah will not change.
observe that? And
It's a good question.
Change, then, but you're saying it will change.
It's a good question. I didn't prepare for that topic. It's a good question.
I'm not trying to challenge.
No, it's an excellent question. It's an obvious question. If Tisha B'Av is going to be abolished, Yom Kippur is in the Torah. How could the Torah doesn't change? That's our claim against Christianity, right?
And I don't remember the words about whether it says, because sometimes there are places in the Torah where it says for all.
Right. But all Torah is it's good. Let's leave it on this side. So I wanted to say what's Yom Kippur to Tisha B'Av. So Shlomo Carlebach says that on Yom Kippur, Hashem is saying to the Jewish people that I love you so much that I forgive you. On Tisha B'Av, Hashem is saying, I love you so much I don't forgive you. In a way that's deeper. I love you so much, the relationship is too important. I'm not giving up on this.
That's relatively easy to grasp. The other one is not.
The first one?
No,
Tisha B'Av is, I love you so much, I'm not giving up on this. I'm not forgiving. Yom Kippur is, I love you so much, I'm forgiving you. Yom Kippur is, right, that's Yom Kippur. We'll go into that a different time. But Tisha B'Av is, I love you so much, the relationship is so important that I can't give up on this.
If you follow the behavior of the people in the era of the First Temple, they were in the process of destroying themselves and destroying Judaism altogether. Which if it's just been a bunch of idol worshippers today, Judaism would have disappeared. So God didn't have any, it's like keeping your child from, your little baby child from walking off a bridge. Sorry I have to do this, but you people are out of control, and I have to hit you over the head with a brick before you get it.
yeah, like a slap in the face to bring it more back to reality.
And the Second Temple is not much better. People hating each other, causeless hatred, which goes on all the time in our society. And we haven't learned much.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not making much progress.
So, yeah. And so Hashem is saying that but what is the root of what was going on? We can look at the actions and we can read the histories and see all that. But at the end of the day, even in the First Temple, they were still bringing karbanos every day. They were. There was groups doing this and groups doing that, and there were groups who were not worshiping idols. It's hard to, what was this? There were still miracles every day. There was still, throughout the First Temple, there was miracles daily in the temple. So what was the root? The root of the problem. So, what we already said from Mei Shiloach was a lack of self-awareness of where they were at. That's what the Mei Shiloach is saying. You went 3 days from Har Sinai to the Meraglim. You didn't take the whole process.
Well, they'd already basically messed up with the golden calf. And were they forgiven for the golden calf right there?
That was Yom Kippur. Yeah, that was Yom Kippur.
Afraid to say them, so that wasn't on the same equal plane with the Jews being the spies being held accountable for the bad report of the spies, which seems like a small thing compared to.
Right, that's a good point. You already had the golden calf. Excellent.
What if we'd taken the 11?
What if we'd taken the 11 days? Yeah. Maybe we wouldn't have sent the spies. Maybe they would have been more. Maybe the Mei Shiloach is pointing out that if they had taken the 11 days, maybe they would have already purified their hearts. They would have already unified their intentions, and they wouldn't have taken that self-destructive step of sending the spies into the land of Israel.
That's always something want to.
So I want to tie this with what I was learning this week from Moshe Weinberger, and this is also what is the relevance of Tisha B'Av nowadays with Sinat Chinam. It says from the Mei Shiloach we see the idea of not being of having a disunity between our mind and our heart, and this is and therefore we have these actions which are just toil. They're vain. They're meaningless. They're not tachlis. They're not towards our purpose, towards our goal. We're self-destructive. And we have the Chazal teach that Hashem said at the egel, at the golden calf, the Jewish people. No, it was at the Meraglim, at the spies. When the spies went into the land of Israel and they said, "This land is too hard, we cannot conquer it," and the Jewish people cried. So Hashem said, "You're crying a cry of emptiness, a cry of chinam, baseless crying. I'm going to give you a reason to cry." And that was the Tisha B'Av. That was the destructions throughout the generations. So he points out, and we know in the Second Temple, like Sheldon, you pointed out, there was baseless hatred, the same word, chinam, free hatred. And people often point out say what is the solution to baseless hatred? Baseless love. So Imantas Weinberg teaches no. What do we say when someone passes away? We say Baruch Dayan Hamet. Blessed is the true judge. The problem was not that it was baseless hatred. The problem was that it was chinam. It was baseless. It doesn't matter if it's baseless hatred or baseless love. The problem is baselessness. The problem is the vanity of the toil that we do when we're self-sabotaging. The problem is that we're not acting from emet, as you pointed out earlier, Sheldon. We're not acting from a truth. We're not in the zone. We don't have that attitude. We're not acting from what is the right thing to do that Hashem wants me to do, and take that from Hashem to here. Rather, it's getting into Hashem, into my mind, but I'm not living it in the world.
One of my favorite sayings. The whole purpose of life is to learn to see ourselves as others see us. It's one of the primary purposes of life. And that's where the ego has to
The self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Very good.
That is a real,
very good.
real challenge.
So Imantas Weinberg, I think, is saying something very, very similar to the Mei Shiloach, and it brings home the message of Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, the reason why it's for us, and the reason why it's not going to be abolished, is because it's not at its essence a bad day. It's at its essence a day for emet. It's a day for self-awareness and bringing Hashem into every place in this world, into every action we're doing, into our work and into our lives, into our marriages, and into our, the way we parent, and into all the different actions that we do into the world. And when it doesn't, that's a huge destruction. Tisha B'Av, as we experience it now, is the destruction of I'm not taking this thing that's so important home. I'm not, I gave you a present and you're not displaying it. You're not using it. We have relationship with Hashem, but we're not bringing it out into our relationships. And Rav Matis Weinberg is pointing out it's not that we were hateful. We were hateful, and it was baseless. It was coming from a place of a lack of awareness. it's too long of a story. And the solution is not to have baseless love. The solution is, how can I bring what I know Hashem wants me to be a good person? What can I do for you? What can I do in my relationships that would be precise, that would be that would be bettering the world and bettering each person?
A good start would be learning not to be judgmental about everybody and having our egos in control of our thoughts. That would be a very good start. Judging everybody and everything, and the ego is always in charge. So keeping that under control is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. The ego is crazy.
It's your enemy. It's God's enemy. It's life's